Hi friends, Sharon from Mad Paper Crush here. Today we're going to be using some garment tags. So the tags that you get when you purchase clothing, a lot of times they have these garment tags on them and they are really sturdy and they make really great bases for things. So today I thought we would use these to make some wonderful Christmas ornaments that you could give away as gifts, that you could hang on your own tree, that you could put on gifts that you're giving away to other people. So we're going to make a couple of these tags today using these garment tags. I hope that you'll join me. So the supplies that you'll need for this project include some fabrics. I'm using some Christmas fabrics here. And then you'll just need some additional bits from your stash. So besides the garment tags, you can see here I have some lace, some brads, some bias tape, and then I have some other embellishments like metal embellishments. I have a key there and some charms. And then I also have just some little paper embellishments that we'll be using for things. You'll also need some scrapbook paper to go on the back of your ornaments. And the tools that you'll need for this project include a paper cutter, an awl, some glue, some scissors. I use some distress ink, but that's not absolutely necessary. And then also an eyelet setting tool. So I'm using a Making Memories one, but you could use a crocodile as well for this project. Okay, so for this ornament, I'm going to use this Calvin Klein tag here, this garment tag that I have, and I picked out just this, it looks like holly berry maybe fabric. So this is what I'm going to use as my base. So to prep the tag, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the string here because I need to be able to cover the fabric. Now for tags that have strings like this attached, you know, you could just undo the knot and pull it out and use the string again if you wanted to. Put it back in when you're done so that you're using the same one, but that's up to you. This one doesn't work that way, so I needed to cut it off. So I'm just going to put that aside for now. Okay, and then all I'm going to do for the fabric is I'm just going to cut out enough to cover my tag. So I'm going to cover the back with paper, so I just need enough to kind of come around the outside. So I'm going to cut this edging off so that it doesn't fray here. So I'm going to leave myself a little bit of a border, a little bit more than a ½ an inch around all sides so that I can fold it over easily. So probably closer to an inch, I'm guessing, is what I'm doing here. So I'm just cutting around, and this idea is the same as, you know, covering a journal page, chipboard, whatever, with fabric. It's, you know, nothing new here. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and see if I can get this tag part off, because what I want to do is the side that's plainer, I think I'm going to put towards the front, because I don't want any words showing through. So if you see this fabric, when I hold the tag up there, you can kind of see the Calvin Klein through there, because this fabric is kind of thin. Now you could paint this first or something like that, but because I was able to tear off the tag and it made it very plain, it'll be easy to put this side down so that it doesn't show. So before I do that, I'm just going to cut this edging off here so it doesn't get us too bulky. And then all I'm going to do is, using my Fabri-Tac, I'm going to put some glue down on the side that I want to be my front. And I would recommend just smoothing it out with your finger so that you don't see any, you know, glue ridges or anything like that. So I'm just smoothing it down so that we don't have any ridges. Whoa! And then if you can hang on to it, I'm just going to put it right in the middle of the fabric that we cut out there. So now you can see I have a nice plain white background for my ornament. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out around the edges so that we can fold it over. And I'm just going to come in at a little bit of a diagonal leave about the width of the height of the board there in my corner so that it'll fold over around each side. So I'm just coming in at an angle, leaving about 1/8 of an inch and cutting them around. Okay, so once we have that all cut out, we can fold over our sides, and my glue is bubbling over like crazy. So I'm just going to try and wipe some of it off here so that I can use it on my card here. So now this part, you don't have to wipe down like we did with the other ones because it's going to be on the back side and we're going to cover that with paper. So I'm just going to put a little bead on the top edges and then just a little bit around here. And my lettering was smearing. Okay, so I'm just doing 2 opposite sides first, and then we'll fold in the rest. Okay. So now what I want to do before I fold it in is I'm going to take my glue and just put a little tiny bit in the corners so that I can fold in that little tiny piece there. So I just want to be sure that this part gets folded in. You just pinch the edges, so that little 1/8 of an inch that we left, we're just kind of folding that in, pinching that in a little bit to keep it so that it will cover the entire tag. Okay, and we're bubbling again. I think I'm gonna have to get a new bottle here. Okay, so I'm gonna do one side at a time, but I've pinched in these sides. And as long as they stay pretty well, I'm going to go ahead and fold this over, because we want our corners to be as smooth as possible. So same thing here. Get a little glue. Make sure our corners are folded in nice, pinched in, which these did pretty good. And then fold it over. Okay, so now I'm just going to give this a minute to dry, and I'm going to go clean up my hands and get a new bottle of glue, and I'll be right back. Okay, this is pretty dry here, and I cleaned up some of my hands, but I'm probably going to have to do some work to really get all that glue off. And I just put some acetone in my glue. I did not get a new glue bottle, so that's a little trick for you. If your glue is starting to get thick or bubble over, you can add a little acetone to sort of give it some new life and allow it to flow a little bit better in your bottle. Okay, let's keep going. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the back. And I see I have a little string here, so I'm just going to cut that little string off. I think the front looks great here. And I'm going to cover the back with a piece of paper. And I'm just using regular scrapbook paper. This is, it's not quite a cardstock, but it's definitely thicker than just plain scrapbook paper. So you might want to choose a cardstock or something a little bit heavier to use on the back. Now all I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark this and cut it so that we can use it. So I'm just going to line it up, leaving a little bit of a border around the edge. And then I'm just going to kind of mark where I want it, and hopefully it'll be good the first time. So just finding my marks. And we'll see how that turned out for us. And I think that's pretty good. I just don't want it to go over the edge. Now, what I am going to do is I'm just going to make sure, like I'm using my finger to just find where the tag hole is, because I want the paper to be right side up. So there is some words on this. So I'm just going to make sure that they're right side up when I put this on. If you don't have paper that, you know, has upside down or right side up, that doesn't matter. But so my tag hole is up here and the top of my paper is up here. So now before I glue this down, I am going to distress it just a little bit because I do want it to look a little antiqued. And the other thing I always like to use distressing for is that when you cut paper, it leaves a white edge, and distressing, you know, takes that edge off. Okay, so now let's go ahead and glue this down. And then once again, we'll let this dry just a little bit because the next thing we're going to do is punch the hole. And I don't want my glue to stick too much to my awl when I punch the hole. So I'm just going to let this dry for just a minute. And then we will punch our hole and start decorating our ornament. Okay, this is pretty dry, so I think we can go ahead and punch our hole. So I'm going to use an awl for this, and I'm just going to use my thumb to kind of figure out where the hole is, and I'm just going to gently push through the fabric and then try to get a nice clean punch through the paper in the back. So, and I'm going to force the awl through as far as I can to make sure, you know, I've got a hole as big as it is on the tag itself. So if you can kind of see that there, I have it pushed through, and you'll notice on the back, it did push the paper out. You know, it's kind of got a stuff sticking up there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my little fussy cutting scissors, or you could use a straight edge or something like that, just to try and cut off some of that around here. So I just like using these scissors because they are very small at the tip and I can get into little places. So that's all I'm going to do. And I'm not going to worry too much about this because once again, it's on the back. But when I put my eyelet in, I just want to be sure that, you know, it has some edge to hold on to and there's not all this bulk around it. So that's all I'm doing here. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. And now I'm going to pick an eyelet here, and I have a whole bunch of different ones, but let's see what I think. Actually, I was thinking about a red one, but one of these brown ones might be kind of nice. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use just a little brown one here because I think some of the collage elements that I'm going to put on it will be brown. So now I'm just going to take my eyelet punch. And you could use a crocodile if you wanted to too. It's just this tool was sitting on my desk, so that was convenient, right? So I've got my eyelet through the front side there. Whoops, and I just threw it out. Let's see if I can do that again and make sure that it stays in. Okay, and now I'm just going to put it down. That's not going to work. There we go. I just want to make sure I have it on the right way. Okay, I'm going to put it down, face down here, and I'm going to use my eyelet crimper part of the tool. And hopefully it came through enough, which I think that it did, to hold it in place. So you can see now I have my eyelet on my tag. And I like the way that looks. So now comes the fun part. So you can use any of the pieces that you have to make some decorations on here. So I think what I'm going to use for this one, I really like sort of how this looks very natural. So I was thinking it might be fun to add some burlap. I like this brass key. I like the contrast of some green. This is just bias tape I had in my stash. And I thought it would be fun to sew it a little to kind of give it some extra look there. So I think I'm just going to start with that and see how it goes. And, you know, I might put a button on it. I might put some more lace or ribbon or something, but I think I like this one to be a little bit natural. So I thought it might be fun, instead of doing the contrast at the bottom, I thought it might be fun to do this at the top. So I think what I'm going to try to do, I'm just going to, and actually Should probably decide if I want, all right, let's try this first. I'm just gonna cut off an end. I'm trying to decide if I wanna wrap it around or if I kind of want the ends to stay, you know, on the front here. Because I could wrap it around and glue it all the way around, but then I would be, you know, covering up the paper on the back, which is totally fine. You know, this is, like I said, this is supposed to be the fun part. So just play around with some things that you have. And then I can maybe, I have some twine here that I could use, and maybe this brown twine would be fun to put it all together. So I think I really like that. It's just kind of plain, but I like it kind of plain. Let me see about maybe adding a wooden button on here. Let's see what we got. I want something kind of small, I think. We have that. Actually, something with an edge might look fun. Or actually, that maybe does look kind of nice. The other thing I could do is put a couple. Let's see if I've got a few that I could put up the side here. Oh, well, that's fun. Maybe I should find one more matching one if I can. Or a completely different one. Or how about, actually, I kind of like the ones with just the 2 holes. I think I saw another one in here somewhere. I could just dump them all out, I suppose, but then we'd have a mess on our hands. Okay. Oh, yeah. I like that. Okay, so that's how I'm going to put this together. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to glue everything down, except for the key. Don't glue the key down. Okay, so while this dries, I'm just going to put that aside a little bit, and all I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut some twine that I'm going to basically put it through the key and then put it through the tag, and we'll have our finished ornament. And I'm just going to give it a little knot at the top. And there we go. Okay. I realized that I thought maybe this could use a little something else. So I got one of these little flowers that I use for just about everything now. Make sure that's not torn. Maybe I'll put that on there to add a little something extra. Once again, this is the fun, right? It's easy to add on to these and keep going. I like it. All right, let's do one more. So this one, I'm going to use this square cut from the cloth tag. And I chose a little bit darker fabric because this one is green and has words all over it. Now, once again, you could paint this or gesso it or something to, you know, kind of give this a more plain look so that it doesn't show through if you have a thinner fabric. But I chose this kind of vintage handwriting ledger looking fabric that I thought might be fun to go over it, and you can't see through it. So I think we're good to go on this one. So I'm going to follow the same process that I did for the other ones. Now this one, because the edges are curved, I may cover this a little bit differently. So let me go ahead and cut it out and I'll show you what I'm going to do. Okay, so this one, I didn't get very straight, but that's okay. All right, so what I'm going to do to cover this one, first let's glue it down. And once again, I'm going to use the lighter side for the front, but how you do that is entirely up to you. And once again, because this had words and I want it to be right side up, I made sure that, you know, the whole corresponds to where the pattern is on my fabric. Okay, so to cover this, because it's got the rounded corners, I am going to do this a little bit different. So my cuts this time, what I'm going to do is first I'm going to come in and cut at sort of a straight line into the corner. But once again, I'm still going to leave that 1/8 of an inch, so the height of the tag. And I'm going to do that on all 4 corners. So I'm going to cut in straight. But let's go ahead and do it actually. I'm going to do 1 corner at a time here. So I'm going to cut that in, leaving that 1/8 of an inch. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to miter or come in at an angle to where I made that first cut so that I have a side edge there. Okay, so then you have this kind of weird little piece here, and you can cut that down a little bit too if you want, so that we don't have so much fabric hanging over. But you do want to have a little corner piece on this one so that when we fold it over, and then this is going to hold it around our edges, and then we'll be able to put our sides in. So I'm going to go ahead and do that around. I'll do it one more time for you while I'm not on fast motion. So first you make a straight cut in and leave about an 1/8 of an inch, and you do that on the 90-degree, both ones, and then come in from the angle and do the miter cut in there. And I was going to try and do that while having my scissors above the cut, but I can't really do that. So we're still doing our side cuts to come in, but because this has a rounded edge, we do want to be sure it's covered, and this is the best way to do that, I do believe. And I'm just going to once again cut off some of this excess fabric, and now I'm going to do that around the rest. Okay, now to glue it down, what we're going to do is we're going to do the 4 corners first, since we left those on. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue. I'm going to go ahead and do all 4. Why not? And I'm going to pull it up nice and tight around that corner, and just kind of tap it down a little to let it grab. And then we'll let that dry for just a second so that we know it's not going to come off. And then we'll start doing the sides here. Okay, to do the sides, I'm just going to put a little glue along the edge of the tag in there, and then on the flap itself. And then we're just going to carefully flip it up and flatten out those side edges. So you can see that once we fold it over, there's just a little bit of a fold on the corner, but our corners are going to be nice and covered. So I'm going to go around and one at a time just do the rest of the flaps to fold them over. Now you can see on this one how I have a little bit of fabric that's overhanging here. I'm just going to go in and try and cut that off because that might create, you know, some additional bulk that I don't really want there. So I just want to make sure I don't have, you know, additional layers of fabric that we don't need. My fingers are so filled with glue that I just keep pulling it up. Okay, so you can see now when we turn it over, our ornament still has those nice round corners that were on the original tag. So I'm going to let this dry real good before I keep going because I just keep sticking to it here. So for this one, we're going to do it a little bit different. My next step normally would be to cover the back with paper and then punch the hole. But I think what I'm going to do for this one is I'd really like to use this little metal medallion with some of this sari ribbon that has a really Christmassy feel on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run my sari ribbon through my little metal piece here. And then I'm going to put it around the ornament, and then we'll cover it so that the sari ribbon in the back is covered. So that's what I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do here is make sure I have enough. I'm going to just kind of place the sari ribbon, you know, kind of how I want it, so that it's, because I am going to glue it down. I don't want it to move around or anything. And also be sure that you're working, you know, from the top so that if you have words, they're right side up. So I'm going to leave this way. And then I'm just going to see how much ribbon I need over here, which I think I have way too much here. So let me kind of put that down a little bit. And I could probably even take it down a little bit more because I don't need to you know, overlap it too much, especially since it'll all be glued down. I don't really need to overlap it at all. Okay, so just enough to cover the back, and I still have too much, I think. Yeah, because I am going to cover this with paper. Okay, so I'm going to cut this right here. And then now, before I glue it down, I'm just going to make sure that, like, I love the sort of frayed edges of this sari ribbon. So I'm going to try to see if I can manipulate it a little bit to get those edges to kind of stick out a little bit. And it doesn't seem to want to cooperate for me. But what I could do, I'm going to put it through again. Seems like there's an extra piece on there. Okay, so let's see if I can, oops, make this work. Okay. Yes, that's a little bit better. Got some of those edges sticking out, which I like. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I have enough of the sari ribbon to fit around the sides on both sides. And then I'm going to glue it down. So I'm going to really make sure it's where I want it to be, because like I said, I don't want this to move. So I am going to glue it down. So I've kind of got this centered. I have some edges sticking out. And I'm going to put some glue on the ribbon itself and also on the metal part too. I really want to make sure this is glued down. And I'm just going to start there because I do want this to go as close to the middle as I can. And then I'm not going to do any more until that dries too, because I don't want it to move on me as I try to glue the rest of it down. Okay, I think we're pretty dry. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to glue down any more on the front part here. I'm just going to glue around the back side to hold it down, and then we'll have our paper cover it. So when I glue it down, I am just going to try and flatten it out as much as I can so that the paper, when we cover it, won't be too bulky. So I'm just going to put a little glue down and flatten it out as much as I can. I am going to just check that to make sure I didn't flatten it too much on the front, and then do the same on the other side. And then we will cut our paper to go over top. All right, I believe this is pretty dry. So what I'm going to do now, as soon as I get all the fuzzies off of me, is I want to cover the back now with my paper. So I'm just going to use this polka dot paper. I think it looks kind of fun. And we'll do it the same way we did the other ones. I'm just going to mark it as close to the edges as I can, or where I want it to be, I should say. And then I'm going to cut it down. And now this one, after we cut it, what I will do is round the edges so that it kind of matches, you know, the shape of the ornament. So this one, just make sure I got my size right, which I think it looks pretty good. And then I'm just going to use my little corner rounder here and give myself some round edges to put on here. Like that. And once again, I will give it a little distress to kind of match the natural feel or the vintage feel of this one. Yes. And now for when I glue it down, I am going to, because this is a little bit bulky, I am going to make sure I get a decent amount of glue on here. And I want to press it down all over to be sure that it stays. And I'm just trying to make sure that I have it pressed down real good up where my tag, or my hole is going to be, so that when we punch through it, you know, it'll be nice and secure on there. And I'm just making sure that the ribbons are pushed down. But I love the simplicity of this one. I think I really like the way that one looks. So, all right, now that we got that going, let's let that dry for just a second and we will punch the hole. Okay, this is just like the other one we had done. I'm just going to use my awl and work it through the fabric and work it through the paper. And I'm just going to use my scissors again to cut off some of the excess that's stuck up. Now this hole looks a little bit bigger than the one I was using before, so I may try a little bit bigger eyelet to go in there to make sure I don't have something that's going to fall through. All right, I found this, I think this is a 3/8 inch eyelet, and it kind of matches the metal here, so I think this will be nice. This will work well. So I'm just going to put that through here, but I'm still going to use my eyelet punch tool here. I'm just going to use the bigger eyelet setter piece, and we'll go ahead and do the same thing with this one. And there we have it. Now for this one, I could use a some more of the sari ribbon to hang it from, or I could use some twine or even just some regular ribbon. So let me see what we have here. Okay, I found some waxed cotton thread that I think would go nicely with sort of my theme here. So all I'm going to do for this, I want this to be a loop that I can pull through, but also use to hang. And I think I probably, well, that might work. All right, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to put a knot in the top of my loop that I just made, and I'm going to keep that pretty close to the top like that, and then I'm going to thread it through like I would, you know, a tag topper. I'm just going to put the bottom loop through and then pull it through this way so that I have a little place to hang it right on a branch there. And I could add like a, you know, an ornament hanger or something as well. But I love the way that one turned out. Okay, last one, and I've already covered my garment tag, and you can see that this one is more of a tag shape. So to cover it, I kind of at the bottom did the same thing we did on the rectangle tags, and on the top I kind of did the same thing we did on the rounded corner. So I cut in from a perpendicular point around each of these bends so that I had a little piece to go in here, and then I had a little piece of the top. So I don't know if you can see that, but that's kind of how I folded it down. So that's what I'm going to start to work with. And I've already kind of picked out my things that I'm going to use, but I just wanted to show you how, you know, versatile this can be. This is just a piece of sari silk that I had left over in my little fabrics bin. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it so that it's big enough to go around, just like we had done on the previous one. But this one, I'm going to go top to bottom instead of around the sides. And once again, I'm going to make sure that my edges that I love, my little kind of frayed edges, are able to show when I glue it down. And I am going to just glue this right down the edge and over the top. So let me go ahead and do that. And I am going to kind of be going over the hole, but we will fix that when we get to it here. So now I've got this all folded over, which is more than I wanted. There we go. I'm just trying to make sure I leave enough at the top and the bottom to wrap around a little bit. And all I'm going to do is glue it down. And because this is a little thicker, I might just have to hold it for a second to make sure that it stays down. Okay, so while that's drying, I'm just going to show you what my idea was here. I have these little metal blanks that I normally stamp on, and I also have this little gold deer that I thought would be cute on there. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to glue my little deer onto my metal blank here. And I probably shouldn't have moved them around so much. So I'm just going to try and wipe off as much of the glue as I can here. And as I push it down, it's kind of smushing out a little bit, but that's okay. All right, and then we'll put this aside to dry because we're going to add that as well. And the other things that I'm going to use are just some gold cord that I have. And I was thinking it might be fun to use this post hole closure. So this is that two-piece thing that has a screw in one side and then the post on the other side. So I think I'm going to use that in my hole in the top instead of an eyelet this time. And we need to have some paper to cover. So I think I'm just going to use this little piece of contrasting paper to go on the back. So maybe what I'll do while everything's drying here is I'll go ahead and try to cut this down so that it is the right size for us. And I am going to have to cut, the tag parts out of this, but I'm sure that most of you have cut tags before, so hopefully it won't be a problem. Okay, so let me look for my marks again. And this, I think I'm going to need to do this way. Maybe I should cut this first. I don't have a straight edge on that one side, so I want to be sure I cut it down right. Okay. Oh, I did do this one almost up to the edge. I really wanted to cover as much as I could there. And so all I'm going to do, I think, I'm going to try, let me see if I have another tag here. I'm just going to see if my tags match, which of course they do not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on where it should go. And I'm going to lay it down and just draw my angles so I know where to cut. And because I have fabric and everything on them, I am going to cut a little bit on the inside of those lines. And we will see how I did. I probably should have done it backwards because this edge is a little bit over, so I need a little bit more off of this one. Oops, that's the front. There we go. That looks better. Let me get this out of the way. And I'm going to go ahead and distress this. All right. And, oh, you know what? I think I had decided, so this is all ready to go, but I don't want to glue this down right away because when I put this on, I want to use my gold thread to tie it around the sides. So because I want to do that, I don't want to cover the back until I have that done. So all I'm going to do right now is I'm going to create a couple of little loops, not very big, to put on the sides of my metal pieces. So you can see here I just have a little piece of maybe 5 inches or so, and I'm going to fold it in half, and we're going to do our normal tag loop thing. And I may have to do this by putting the ends through instead of the loop. Or a little easier to get through. And then I'm putting my ends through my loop. So I have a little tie on there. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the other one. And now I can pull this around the back. And I probably should have left them a little bit longer so I could actually tie them, but I think we're going to just have to glue them down. Let's see. I think we should do it the same way we did the Hope one. I think I should glue this right down so that I know that it won't move. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Right where I want it. And we'll hold that for a second to have it set up. I'm telling you, this is a sticky finger project. Okay. Now I'm going to flip this over, and I'm just going to put a little bead of glue, or a big bead of glue if your glue is bubbling like mine, right in the middle there. And then I will put the ends over. And try and hold them down until everything grabs. All right, let's go ahead and get the back on this. And once again, because there's the sari ribbon and the thread on here, I want to be sure I have a pretty good amount of glue to hold everything down. And I'm just going to press it down and wait for that to dry. Okay, now I want to punch the hole in this one, and because there's so much here, it's really kind of hard to tell where the hole is. So maybe I'll see if I can find it in the back. Oh yeah, it's right there. So I'm just going to, once again, thought I had found it. Oh yeah. Be careful with this one because the ribbon is thicker. And now this one, we'll do the same thing. I'm going to cut the excess off. But because I'm going to finish this one a little bit differently, I'm not so concerned about a little bit being left over here. So this post hole screw thing will be covering up most of that. So I'm just going to take that apart, but I have a little bit of this thread left over. So I'm going to put that through the hole first because I want to be sure I still have something to hang my ornament with. So I'm just going to kind of leave this up here nice and long. And then what I'll do, pulling that out of the way, is put my screw through the back, which hopefully I've made the hole big enough. I may need to put my awl through there again to make sure I have it opened up enough for this to come through correctly. It looks like it's starting to go through. I think what's happening is my ribbon is just kind of getting in the way. Probably because I'm putting the awl through this way. Let me see about putting it through this way. See See if I can keep things open while I put this through. There we go. Okay, I have my string out of the way, I have my screw through, and then I'm just going to take my post and screw this on. And I don't have scissors or a screwdriver right here. I'm trying to make sure that it's not spinning around too much. But there we go. So then I can just take my top and, like the other ones, make a little knot in the top so that we can hang it. That one didn't come through. There we go. And there is our little ornament with our deer on it. And there you go, friends. We made some beautiful Christmas ornaments out of scraps that you probably have in your stash and garment tags. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to my channel if you aren't already. I try to put out one video a week of different crafts or ideas for junk journals or different things. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, friends.